I use this same approach to go from failing and on a pip to number one at Salesforce in 4 different roles. And now I teach the same systems to my clients who are consistently adding 50 to 100K to their income within 12 months using this. If the goal is to get to President's Club in 2026 and you're going to try to just copy random LinkedIn tactics, you're going to get smoked by reps who run real repeatable systems. In this video, I'm going to give you the complete systems-based roadmap so that you can hit Club in 2026, specifically for people that are working in tech, SaaS, software, or in that B2B enterprise space. And no, you're not going to get some magic opening line. You're not going to get 3 objection hacks that we know really aren't going to get you there. You're going to get a repeatable operating system that blends how you generate pipeline, how you build and advance deals with executives, and how you close and execute cleanly. So you know exactly what to do daily, weekly, and quarterly to not only hit, but exceed your number, which is going to be required if you're going to get to Club. So let's start with why most AEs never get to President's Club. And let's start with some uncomfortable truth. Most AEs are permanently stuck between 70 to 90% of their quota. They're not bad reps. They're just running their career on chaos. And what does that look like? They're prospecting only when the pipeline is empty. They're chasing half-baked deals because it's a logo that we need. They're reacting to their manager's forecast panic instead of running their own plan. They're switching companies every 12 to 18 months and blaming territory, product, comp plan, or their leader. But the real problem isn't talent. It's really a lack of systems. If they don't have a system for creating deals with executives and advancing them with complex buying committees, and they don't have a system for executing deals predictably and closing without having to discount like crazy. Reps that consistently get to Club and overachieves their number, they're not smarter. They just run better systems, and they run them longer than everyone else is willing to do. So let's walk through these 3 systems that you need in 2026. So system 1 is creating high quality opportunities. Look, if your pipeline is trash, your year is over before it starts. President's Club is all about how you create opportunities, not how you salvage them and save them later on. So we're going to break this system into 3 parts: prospecting and pipe gen, discovery that actually qualifies and creates urgency, and cleaning your pipeline so only real deals survive and get your attention. Now let's start with prospecting and pipe gen. President's Club's reps do not rely on good quarters. They don't rely on inbound luck. They don't rely on hoping marketing saves them. They have 1 or 2 core prospecting motions they can run in their sleep. For example, they have a targeted outbound into a clear ICP. They have a clear system for how they leverage social selling into warm buyers. They have a clear way to create and leverage referrals as well as customer expansion. Because the key principle is this: this is about quality, not random volume. Because that means you know exactly who you serve best, ICP, ideal customer profile. You have a clear problem hypothesis before you even reach out. You're not just blasting checking in emails to anyone with a pulse. And then you project prospecting with your calendar. These are non-negotiable prospecting blocks that you do every week. And you treat those blocks and you prepare for those blocks as if you are preparing to present to your CEO and board. You track which channels actually turn into real opportunities, not just meetings. And you leverage sequences and cadences that are part of a system, not a blind religion. And you're constantly learning, hey, what actually opens the doors for my market? Then we go to a discovery that actually qualifies and creates urgency. The goal of discovery is not to just have a good conversation. The goal of discovery is for you to decide, should this even be in my pipeline? And it all starts with how you frame the call. Here's what we're going to cover. Here's what I want to learn. And by the end, we'll both know if this is worth moving forward or not. Sound good? And then your questions uncover current state. What is their process? What tools they use? What's the team look like? What are their targets? What's the problems and friction in their business? What's breaking? What's slowing down or blocking them from achieving their goals? Then what's the impact to the revenue, the cost, risk, time lost, whatever that is? And then getting clarity on the priority. Is this a top 3 for them or a nice to have? Because people don't buy supplements, they buy painkillers. And then we get clarity on the timeline and the triggers. Why do something now versus 6 to 12 months from now? And we're not just interrogating them, we're bringing insight. So things we could say is, hey, what you're describing is very similar to what we saw at Acme Corp. And in their case, the real cost wasn't in rep productivity, it was the margins of the business. Do you think that's true for you as well? You're pattern matching other customers and helping them actually think. Because what's most important is you're willing to call out a misalignment early. Based on what you've shared, I don't think this is a priority right now, and I don't want to waste your time or mine. President's Club's reps are not afraid to disqualify deals, and they're actually pretty ruthless about it. And that's how they shorten sales cycles and protect their time. And then what is the output of this? You get a clean, winnable pipeline. Because at the end of the day, system number 1 should give you a clean, winnable pipeline to run at, not a fantasy board full of maybe deals. You define a real opportunity with criteria like, hey, do we have clear pain? Do we have a clear business impact? And is this a confirmed priority? I also like to call this the 3 whys. Why anything, why us, why now? Because maybe deals kill your quarter and your shot at President's Club. So each week you run a pipeline cleaning ritual. You close out and kill those stale deals that haven't moved or aren't engaged with you. And then you re-engage or rediscover the deals that are starting to go sideways or may have already went sideways. And making sure you're updating real next steps and dates for every live opportunity that you're running. And then you're making sure that you're clear on what the pipeline coverage looks like, because you should have 3 to 4x of what your quota looks like and have that anchor to stage conversions, not just total dollar amounts. And by doing this, you're going to shift from, hey, I hope this closes, to these are real specific deals with specific next steps. And by doing this, this is going to get me past my number. That's system number one. Now, system number two is how do we advance deals with executives? Because in 2026, if you can't get executive alignment, your deals die and maybe later. So system number two is all about demos that get built from great discovery, executive conversations that actually move the budget, and multi-threading and mutual action plans that keep your deals on track. So let's talk about demos that get built from great discovery and not just generic click-throughs. The worst demo is the one you can give to anyone. President's Club demos start with, hey, here's what you told me last time, and you recap. What are their problems? What's the impact? What do the goals look like? And what do success metrics look like? And then what you do is you pick 2 to 3 core storylines that directly map to those problems. And you show them the workflows that solve this, not features. So think more in a day in the life of their team with your product. And then what you do is you use customer stories that mirror their industry, that mirror their company size, and most importantly, mirror the pains that they have. And what you're going to be doing when you do the demo is you're going to pause frequently and you're going to establish value checkpoints. And you'll ask questions like, hey, does this reflect your world? What would you change? If you had this in your world, would that solve the problem? Or how does this compare to how you're doing things today? And then you end with a quick summary of the value and value sign off. Because if they can't sign off on seeing the value of your solution in their world, next steps are irrelevant. So you have to make sure you get clear on that. And then once you do that, the final step is getting a clear next step that you're going to propose based on your experience as the expert in the deal, which could be an executive review, pilot design, or a technical deep dive, whatever makes sense for your sales cycle. Now, just to be clear, this isn't a show and tell. Here is exactly how this solves the thing that you told me that is painful. I call this the linchpin, the thing that's going to connect the dots for them. Now let's get into executive conversations, like how to get them and more importantly, how to run them. In 2026, no real money moves without executives involved. First is how do we get executive conversations? Number one, you have to ask your champion who truly owns the outcome that you're solving. And once you get clear on that, what I want you to do is offer a short, high value session. So typically this is something like 15, 20 minutes to align on the business case and the rollout plan. And this gives your champion language that could forward to that executive. Now running the executive conversation, you're going to come in with 2 to 3 outcomes that you want. Number one is confirm that it's actually a priority. Number two, you want to validate your ROI logic. And then number three, agree on the path to a decision. And you're going to open with a very clean and crisp summary of what's happened. So a talk track you can use is, hey, here's what your team told us. Here's the impact and here's the outcome we think we can drive. Now, just to be clear, you want to speak their language. If they say streamline, you don't say more efficient. You want to use their language because that helps them know that you're actually paying attention. So how they communicate revenue, how they communicate around margin, efficiency, risk, you name it. And then also how this ties to the strategic initiatives in the business. Then you're going to ask calibration questions when you're meeting with the executives. So a question you'll ask is, what else is competing for this budget or the attention of your team? Or, hey, what would make this a clear yes for you versus a nice to have? Because what we want is true clarity on what moves the needle. Our executives are not about wasting time and don't try to waste theirs. So direct questions get direct answers. And then you're going to close the meeting by confirming their support, by saying, hey, if your team validates the details, are you behind supporting allocating budget to fund this initiative? These are things you want to get clear on. And then you're going to be agreeing on concrete next steps and who needs to be involved. Now, once you do this, this is where multi-threading and mutual action plans come into place. Because single-threaded deals are fragile as hell and they're full of risk. Because one person might get busy, they might leave the business, or they might lose influence in the organization. And your Q4 commit is now suddenly gone. So when you map the buying committee, you want to get clear on end users, their leadership, who owns the budget, who's the executive sponsor, IT, security, procurement, legal, all of that. And you can use your champion to make those intros. You use a talk track like, hey, it'll be a lot easier for us to build a realistic plan if we make sure we loop in IT, finance, ops, the right people. Who's the right person on your side? And what's the best way to get them involved? And then by doing that, you're going to be able to introduce a mutual action plan. And you're going to frame it as, hey, this is to help you hit your deadlines, not my quota. Because what your map is going to include is key milestones. Who are the owners of those on both sides of the table? What are the key dates and dependencies in this evaluation? Internal steps, security review, legal, procurement, exec sign-off, implementation planning, all of that. And you review it at the end of every call to make sure you're clear with your champion, your point of contact around, hey, has anything changed? What has been completed? What's next? And you keep referencing it in email follow-ups to keep everyone in line. And you're going to teach your champion. And you'll say something like, hey, if we don't know the steps between, hey, we really like this and we're live and solving the problem, your project is at risk. And that's why we need to outline these steps up front. That's system number 2. Now let's talk about system number 3, which is how to execute your deals predictably so that that you can close effectively. So system number 3 is where President's Club is really won or lost. It's not just getting the verbal, it's structuring the pricing and packaging in a way that it's negotiating without panicking or destroying the margin of your business. It's navigating legal, procurement, and then handoff without losing the momentum. And we're going to do it in a few different ways. So let's talk about building a creative commercial structure that aligns with your buyers. Because President's Club reps really decide the deal strategy early, not when procurement shows up. So you're going to align your pricing and packaging with what they told you that they care about: speed, adoption, scale, flexibility, whatever that is. And you're going to present a couple options. For example, what a pilot looks like, what a standard engagement looks like, and what a strategic engagement looks like. Or another way to think about it is good, better, best. And each option is outcome driven. So you'll say things like, hey, if your goal is X and Y, this is the option that makes the most sense for that. Or you'll say things like, hey, if your goal is X, this is most likely the best option here. Or if Y is the number one priority, then this other option might be a better fit for you. And you're going to be able to avoid 17 lines of pricing table. You're going to have fewer options that are clearly differentiated. And before you go deep into proposal mode, you're going to get clear on what the budget reality is. And a question you'll ask is, hey, based on what we've discussed, is this in the realm of what you were expecting to invest? Now let's talk about negotiating principles that protect your margin and prevent you from panicking. So what you're going to do is you're going to expect negotiation, because a discount request doesn't mean a deal is bad. So when they push on price, I want you to get curious. So a question you'll say is, hey, can you help me understand the why behind that request? Is it a hard budget cap, internal policy? Is this a procurement play? Is there another vendor's pricing that's at play here? Because we don't want to negotiate against ourselves. So what I don't want you doing is pre-discounting. No changing numbers before they've given you a specific ask. You use gives and gets. So something you could say is, hey, if we look at reducing price or adding more value, I'll need your help with X in return. Whether that's a longer agreement term, a faster start date, a case study, or access to your executive team. Now, what you're doing is you're constantly re-anchoring on value and impact, not line items and pricing. And what you have to do is you have to know your walk-away point, because as salespeople, we get paid commission on margin, and protecting margin and deal quality is how you protect your overall performance and your true shot at President's Club. Now let's talk about the deal execution, your legal, procurement, keeping momentum, doing effective handoffs, because this is where a lot of, hey, we're at 120%. Those quarters, this is where they quietly die. So what I want you to do is normalize friction. Hey, it's totally normal for legal and security to take time. That's why we want to plan for it upfront. And you're going to surface this in the process early. You'll say something like, hey, once we agree in principle, what's the usual path to get something executed? Who needs to review that? And what are the timelines associated to that? And then you make sure you add those steps into your mutual action plan with realistic timeframes. Now, here's how you keep momentum. You need to make sure you agree with your champion on a meeting cadence. I like this weekly where you're doing that check-in, doing the updates of what you've accomplished, what they've accomplished, and what needs to happen next. And when you're meeting with them, I want you continuing to give them internal ammunition. Your one-pagers, summary decks, FAQs, security info, whatever they need to help sell for you behind the scenes. And I want you watching for red flags. If someone ghosts you or doesn't schedule a next step after they give you a verbal yes, or there's endless new stakeholders that get added to the deal, or there's no real clear next step, these are red flags that you need to address head on, because otherwise those red flags are going to turn into landmines, and landmines blow up deals. Now let's talk about the handoff. What I want you to do is bring in your customer success team or implementation team into the conversation before the ink is dry. Because what you're going to do is you're going to leverage them to make sure you're recapping goals, timelines, and what the success metrics look like for the project. And then by doing that before the deal is done, the customer is going to feel like they're not just getting dropped into a black box once they execute. That's what great reps do to make sure that you're setting the customer up for success. And that's what gets them to really execute on the timeline that you want. And here's how you tie it back to President's Club. This helps you protect your deal size. This helps you avoid slippage into the next quarter. This is how you reduce those no decision outcomes. And that's what drives overattainment. Now let's talk about turning this into your 2026 operating rhythm, because none of this matters if it's just good ideas. President's Club is built in your calendar, not in your head. So here's how this looks like in real life. So on a daily basis, I want you thinking about protected prospecting blocks. And on a daily basis, think about that one deal that you can advance intentionally, that strategic email, that call, that executive intro, that mutual action plan update, right? Think about that one a day. It's going to help you get to club. On a weekly basis, make sure you're doing pipeline cleanup. I want you to kill the zombies, make sure you're refreshing next steps, and make sure that they're clear. I want you doing film review. I want you reviewing your discovery, how you do demo, how you do negotiations, everything in between. It's going to help you continue to sharpen your axe. I want you to do a mutual action plan review on your top deals. Now, on a monthly and quarterly basis, I want you to consistently do a pipeline coverage check. Do you have at least 3 to 4x in real opportunities in your pipeline? I want you doing deal strategy review on your top 5 to 10 ops. I want want you doing a skills audit. Where are you weak across these different systems? Because we're not hoping to have a good quarter. We're running an operating system that makes good quarters the default. So let's review the three systems. So first is a system for creating high quality opportunities. We want to have a consistent prospecting into a clear ICP. We want discovery that actually qualifies and creates urgency. And we want a clean, winnable pipeline you can trust. Next is a system for advancing deals with executives. You want demos that are built from discovery, not generic decks. You want executive conversations that move budget and priority, and you want to execute multi-threading and mutual action plans that keep your deals on track. And last is a system for closing and executing deals predictably. You want clear, outcome-based commercial pricing and packaging. You want negotiation that protects your margin with a high degree of confidence. You want a smooth legal and procurement process and handoffs so your deals don't slip. I was able to become the #1 rep at Salesforce in 4 different roles by using systems like these to generate predictable revenue every quarter. Now we've shared these systems with hundreds of clients, and they've consistently had anywhere from 50 to 100K plus to their income in less than 12 months doing this. People like Alex, who went from 60 to 122% of quota in 3 months, or Brett, who used this to help him become #1 out of 80 reps at Salesforce. And we did that by running a systems-based approach, not random tactics and luck. So if that sounds interesting to you, click the link in the description. You can book a call with our team. We'll look at your pipeline, your skill gaps, and your current systems, and we'll map out how to make 2026 your President's Club year. So that's your roadmap to club. Not theory, but systems you can actually run. Now, if you got value from this, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with which system you're going to improve first. I'm Justin J. Johnson. I want you to build systems, not stress. I'll see you in the next video.